Okay, 1 second.
So while you're doing that, this is Ryan Thorson, I guess, from College in Cedar Rapids, and he'll be talking about tunneling with the strike tunnel. Get some more good baseball knowledge.
Here we go. All right, everyone see my screen now?
I can.
Awesome. All right, so my name is Ryan Thorson. I'm a junior at College studying data science and economics with a minor in Spanish as well. And so this past summer, my research project within the economics department was just trying to introduce the strike tunnel and how pitchers can tunnel and have success with that. So the purpose of this presentation and just research in general was to define, one, what the strike tunnel is, explain how this tunnel can be used to create deception as well, and then how a pitcher can use his pitches and arsenal to interact with the tunnel to produce effective pitches, not just pitches with crazy metrics. So first, what is the strike tunnel? Well, this figure 1 here shows kind of the black lines or what the strike tunnel is. So it's just a 3D projection of the pitcher's release point all the way to the 4 corners of the strike zone. So it's nothing crazy. It's just trying to see, just give a location of where the strike zone is as it expands towards home plate. So my main motivation for this was to develop alternative methods to create deception and then understand how different profiles interact with strike tunnels. I think we've all here heard about what tunneling is, especially pitch to pitch, but this is a different form of tunneling. It's more of a pitch versus a constant. So you're not trying to compare it to other pitches you've thrown. You're just trying to compare it to one single thing that doesn't move. So at the MLB level, it's producing more analytical data to analyze pitchers' performances and their pitches. I'm not necessarily looking for a sweeper that moves 25 plus inches, but more of one that can stay out or into the tunnel as long as possible before darting out. And then specifically at co-baseball, where I'm a member of the team as well, it's just providing a simplistic approach to pitching. A lot of guys have different varying understandings of what pitching is and how they can use their arsenals to get out. So being able to explain that, hey, you don't have to throw your slider to the outside corner to a righty. You just have to throw it out of the tunnel and then just have it end up being a strike. That's really given us a lot of success with helping our pitchers out. So the main literature I used for this, these 3 pieces, particularly Luke Smales, he's another co-grad, all look at pitch-to-pitch tunneling. They might look at different parts of the strike zone with how pitches interact with that. But like I said earlier, my type of tunneling is different because I'm comparing a pitch to a constant. I'm not trying to compare how my slider breaks off of my fastball and how those compare. It's just how does my slider look in comparison to the strike tunnel. So just a general overview of how pitchers get outs and what they can use. So the first one is velocity. So these pitchers are using their elite velocity to get outs. They don't really care as much about the location. It's more just throwing the pitch as hard as they can and keeping it above that threshold, which I believe is about 98 miles an hour. That can prevent them from having a ton of poor results. Location is another one. It limits hard contact if they can keep their pitches on the edge of the zone. But if they're not succeeding on a regular basis and leaving pitches in the middle, they're going to give up a lot of hard contact, I believe. Movement's another one. When pitchers are just using their pitch movements and arsenals to keep pitches off barrels, like Roland was just talking about. And a pro of this is that they get a lot of swings and misses. But a negative of this is that not all movement is effective movement. We don't necessarily want to see the pitch that breaks a ton, super loopy, and just has that big overall shape. We kind of want to see something that's a little tighter, can interact with the strike tunnel on a more individual basis, and then is more repeatable. So that leads into the deception piece, where it's just a pitcher trying to fool a hitter based on how their pitch moves in relation to the strike tunnel. This can allow a pitcher to trick the hitter into not doing what they want, but it requires a lot of accuracy and then repeatability in order to have success with this method. So the data I used initially when I was doing this, I scraped the 2023 data set over the summer. However, with this presentation being after the conclusion of the 2024 season, I updated it recently. So I basically just used a simple scraper of Baseball Savant. So I got every single pitch, which came out to about 720,000 pitches. And then I used a function that Carson Sievert created based off of Alan Nathan's paper from 2012, which basically just creates a 3D projection of the pitch. So every hundredth of a second, it gives me an X, Y, and Z coordinate. We can kind of see how a pitch moves over time. I use Plotly to help plot some of these pitches, which I'll show in a little bit. But it just allows you to see how a pitch moves through space. So the types of tunneling and within this deception category. The first one is end-to-end. This allows a pitcher to throw a lot of strikes because the ball's in the tunnel the entire time on its way to home plate. But a con is that if a pitcher doesn't have an elite trait, especially velocity, it's going to be very difficult because the batter knows it's a strike initially and it ends up being a strike. In to out, the pitch starts in the tunnel, then darts out. This can lead to a lot of swings and misses, but if swings aren't being induced, it's going to lead to a lot of walks. This is like the slider that breaks a ton. You start it right in the middle, but it ends up in the left-handed batter's box. Out to in is when a pitch stays out of the tunnel before darting in. I attribute this pitch mostly to like a backdoor cutter or slider. And this fools a lot of hitters into not swinging at the pitch if the pitch is effectively moving. But if it's another big breaker or it's crossing into the tunnel too early, it can lead to hard contact as well. Then out to out, through my results, I really never found a pro of this. It's more of just it isn't a strike. It doesn't induce many swings in general. And so pitchers just need to avoid this in general. So kind of showing what the strike tunnel is again, figure 2 is the same one I showed earlier, which is just a backdoor slider from Paul Skeens in comparison to the strike tunnel. Figure 3 is kind of the Plotly of a similar angle of that. So the red line right here, I just picked a Johan Duran, like 104-mile-an-hour fastball just for fun. We can kind of see it staying in the tunnel that whole way, all the way to the strike zone. And then figure 4 is just a zoomed out from release all the way to the strike zone. You kind of see how that tunnel expands over time. So the evaluation statistics I used for this, the first one is swing percentage. I also use whiff percentage as well, average expected batting average. Average run value was an important one, and for this we want it to be negative because we want the pitcher and the pitch to remove runs possible from a situation. Average BABIP as well, which is just the ball in play, remove strikeouts and home runs, and then average exit velocity as well, just to see that maybe these pitches seem like they're going to be good, but if guys have an average barrel or average exit velocity of 95 miles an hour, it's obviously doing something wrong. So my general analysis, this part I separated into a pitch that crossed more than 30 feet away, which is table 1, more than 30 feet away from home plate. And then table 2 is when it crosses less than 30 feet away. So looking at these, I basically just used the main pitches, wanted to keep the sample sizes really big. So we can see in table 1 that all the swing percentages really on pitches that end up in the zone are extremely high. Even an out to in slider has almost a 75% swing rate. Almost the same as an in-to-in fastball. So we can see that even as the pitch breaks far and away from the pitcher's hand into the tunnel, hitters are going to recognize that early. Because of this, we can see in-to-in fastball, especially here, almost an 85 average exit velocity, even though it's not elite, over 6,000 pitches, that's pretty repetitive hard contact. And then we can see an average run value. Only 3 of these 7 pitch types and pitch tunnels are a negative run value. So out-to-out fastballs, out-to-out sinkers, we can see are positive. Like I said, the out-out really doesn't have a benefit. And if you're just walking people, you're constantly adding to that run scoring environment. But in table 2, we can see these numbers actually take a dramatic shift. Pitches that all these run values, first of all, are negative. So we can see that pitchers are having way more success when the pitches cross closer to home plate. Even the out-to-in fastball, which you'd say is a pretty pitch that doesn't move much, even that is still having a lot of success as it's breaking into the tunnel late. We can see that an in-to-out changeup, even though it might not be a pitch that is supposed to garner a bunch of swings and misses, has a 30% swing rate or whiff rate on almost a 70% swing rate. And then in-to-out sliders, which is the typical wipeout strikeout pitch, has a 60% swing rate and just under 30% whiff rate. So these are a culmination of the top 30 pitchers based on expected WOBA. And so we can kind of see that even though these guys have different profiles, different movement types, arsenals, that these tunnel types and these pitch types, the results are pretty similar overall, no matter if a guy is lefty, righty. good slider, bad slider. So I looked at two main pitchers for this. I looked at Tarek Skubal, the Cy Young winner, and then Paul Skeens as well. I'll show in the next slide. And just analyzing how do these guys get outs? One, even though they both possess elite velocity, how do these guys win on the fine margins? So we can see Tarek Skubal, one of his best off-speed pitches is his changeup. And we can see that no matter where the pitch broke, it's getting over 75% swing rate and then almost a 40% whiff rate, which is just astronomical. He's also getting a very low BABIP on this and a pretty low average exit velocity. And I'm believing that if a ball is hit hard, it'll be into the ground in this instance. We can also see the in to out to in fastball and the in to in sinker. Both of these have a pretty high expected batting average. So guys are hitting the ball hard, especially the in to out to in fastball. It just kind of shows that if you do leave a pitch in the zone and the hitter does hit it hard, like they're going to do damage. It's like a pretty obvious thing. But we can see that the run value for both of these are still pretty close to zero. And then the in to out to in fastball, which I say is going to be on the edge of the zone based on its interactions, is a negative run value. So it's still leading him to have success. We can also see that even though Skubal throws near 100 miles an hour, the in to in fastball here, 73% swing rate. Guys are going to swing at a pitch that's in the zone, but only a 12% whiff rate. So he's not getting those swings and misses. Maybe he's getting foul tips, maybe not, but he's not actually getting swings and misses regularly. Now looking at Paul Skeens, the big thing I want you guys to take away from this is that his run values are almost all negative. Besides the out-to-out fastball, which is always a ball, he's constantly winning in the run value margins. So even though he has elite velocity, his pitches are really good, he has good movement, he's still winning on the tunneling margin. And that shows why he had so much success right away. Again, another changeup guy had a 36% whiff rate on his changeup. Pretty small sample size, but it's still enough to see that he's still having a lot of success. On the out-to-out fastball, I wanted to show this just because it shows how good major league hitters are. Obviously, everyone knows that they're the best of the best. But the fact that Paul Skeens throws 100 miles an hour and they're swinging less than 10% of the time on an out-to-out fastball just shows to me like these guys are better than you could ever imagine. And they're whiffing at a 3%. So even if they do swing at 100-mile-an-hour fastball, they're still going to get a piece of it. The end-to-end fastball I thought was interesting with Skeens as well because it has almost a 400 expected batting average. So this kind of shows why people complain about his shape from what I've seen. That even though he does throw with elite velocity, it doesn't necessarily beat guys. Skubal's, I believe, was in the mid 200s on this same pitch and classification. So showing that even though you throw 100 miles an hour, you can still be beat if you're not locating it in a good spot or you're just throwing it repetitively or you're just not interacting with the strike tunnel optimally. So this is a line graph here of the distance from home plate in which a pitch crosses into the strike tunnel or out of the tunnel, and then the associated average whiff percentage based on all of those pitches. So we can see generally as the pitch crosses farther away from home plate, it's lower, but as it gets closer, it slowly increases until about 15% is the peak, which is over a 35% whiff rate, and that's on all types of pitches. So it's the same sample size, same group of the top 30 pitchers by expected WOBA from 2024. But no matter what the pitch is, fastball, changeup, slider, whatever, they're still getting an over 35% whiff rate. So I believe here that this shows like the 10 to 20 feet window is really the best that we want to have. It shows it's right before there's a decline on both sides. So it's that point I've attributed to if you're throwing a pitch and it's in the tunnel, it has enough time to get out of the tunnel by enough to draw a swing and miss, or it's out of the tunnel by enough that it's just barely sneaking in and it can deceive a hitter. And then there's this plummet kind of towards the 22.5% rate as the pitch gets to 0 feet from home. And I just think that's not necessarily guys aren't having success, but more if a guy throws a slider and it stays in the whole time and then just breaks off the outside part of the plate, guys still can go and foul that off. It's not enough just to get a whiff, but it might still have success in producing maybe a foul ball or some weak contact. So these are out in and into out leaderboards. So just how good are guys at repeating these pitches overall. So whether obviously these they're all fastballs that you can see in both table 5 and 6. And I just think that's the most repeatable pitch, so guys aren't worrying about where their pitches is starting. They're just kind of letting it eat. It's ending up on the edge, and that's why it's so repeatable. Um, but Blake Snell and Josh Hader are the two main ones that stick out. Both really big swing and miss guys, but the fact that their fastballs, just in general, are crossing home plate just about 10 feet from home plate, and then all these guys are in table five or under 13 feet, just shows how repeatable these guys are. No matter, I mean, all these guys have elite fastballs, they're throwing 100 miles an hour, but the fact that they can dot pitches on the strike tunnel, make it hard for a batter to read it and then have it dart in at the last second shows how repeatable they are as pitchers, but also how their stuff is effective when in game. The into out leaderboard is just guys that are throwing their fastballs here and they can break out at the last second. Joe Ryan, Aaron Bummer, Tarek Skubal again. All these guys have elite fastballs, high velocity, but it shows that these hard throwers may not just be hard throwers. They actually understand that they need to do more than just throw the ball hard right down the middle to have success. So in general, why is this important? Well, first of all, it allows coaches to simplify pitching to their pitchers. It's not, hey, I need you to throw this slider down and away. It needs to end up just off the plate to a righty. It's more of, I need you to throw this thing as hard as you can. I need you to throw it right down the middle and then just let it move out. Pitchers, no matter what the level is, they're going to throw with some sort of repeatability in their arsenal. So just telling them, hey, your fastball or your slider moves enough to get where it needs to get, just throw it through this window that's like 10 feet in front of you, and you're going to have success. This also helps to coaches visualize a concept they've long understood but haven't been able to show their players. So here at Co, I'm our head coach and pitching coach. Coach Cook shows and talks about, hey, I need you to throw this to this window. It's not necessarily, oh, I need you to throw this slider. I need you to throw it down and away. I need you to throw it down and in. It's understanding that these pitchers have a lot on their plate. They're working through pitch design sessions. Their pitches aren't always moving the same way. So just saying, hey, I need you to throw this slider, for example, like a fastball, and then just let the movement take over, really simplifies and lets the pitcher know that one, they're in control of the situation, and two, that making a change and making an adjustment pitch to pitch is a lot smaller of a project than they may actually think. And the main culminative thing is that effective versus total movement are two very different things. Guys throw pitches. I think I'm a Cubs fan, so I always attribute it back to Jose Cuas. His slider moves forever. It moves so much, but it's always for balls. It's never inducing swing and misses. And that's why I believe the Cubs traded him and the Royals released him this past year. But guys like Corbin Burns, per se, obviously an elite pitcher, especially when his cutter was really good a year or two ago, showed that guys really didn't swing at his cutter, especially on the outside part of the plate to lefties. It was just, oh, it stays out of the tunnel as long as possible and then darts in at the last second. It's extremely effective in its interaction with the strike tunnel, and then how he uses that to get out to different types of batters, different locations, and different situations. And this is what I used. And this is my contact information if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out or anything like that. Does anyone have any questions now, though? Right. Okay. Well, thank you for listening and thank you for your time. It was a good experience to get this sort of experience in presenting and showing what I've done with my work. So thank you.
Nice job. Good luck with the season.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan. We'll see you in the spring.
Sounds good. See you guys soon.
So a reminder that this room will now be empty. And I guess you're welcome to hang around and talk or go find another of the good talks to go to. So enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Cool. Thanks, Roland.
Hi, so I'm Roland Minton at Roanoke College. The important thing about Roanoke College for this talk is that we're Division III baseball, which means we're a little bit data poor and a little bit resource poor and a little bit research time poor. What we're not poor in is we get to play most of our home games at the local minor league ballpark, which is outfitted by the Red Sox with TrackMan data. So if you haven't seen TrackMan data, this is what it looks like. You get one line for each pitch, a lot of demographic information, type of pitch, what happens to it, release speed, release angle, spin rate, spin axis, three-dimensional release point, vertical and horizontal break, two-dimensional location of the ball when it reaches home plate. If the ball is hit, you've got exit speed, angle, spin rate, distance, hang time, and a bunch of other stuff. It goes on for most of the games, which have fielder positioning included. You have over 200 fields. For the first year or so of this, I completely ignored all the stuff at the end. I didn't know what this hit trajectory was about. Read the manual. Who knew that helped? Turns out that those are coefficients for eighth order polynomials for x, y, and z parametric equations for each hit. So we can actually reconstruct what the hit looked like. Can't really see it in this angle. So this is a report from one of our games, part of the reports we give the team. Can't really see it in this angle, but tilted. These two on the left, both of them, the two black ones, start off in very much the same direction. One of them hooks a fair amount to the left. The other one goes straight. So that sideways information, which you could somewhat deduce from the spin axis of the hit, actually shown in the trajectory, which leads into catch probability. From that trajectory, I can compute a potential landing point and then the distance to the closest fielder. The data has hang time in it. I've got over 7,000 NCAA games, almost all Division I. When you get a TrackMan subscription, you get all of the games that, for any college game that uses TrackMan. So huge data set. Off of distance and time, you can actually do a decent prediction. So here's a scatter plot. Red are the hits, blue are the outs. Pretty good division line between what's a hit and what's an out. Not a bad predictor. There's a better one, which I thought from the beginning would be better. If I've got distance and time, I can compute speed. So how fast does the closest fielder need to go to get there? And here's the fit to the logistic curve. The dots are the actual data for different speeds. And this is the probability of a hit, actually. And then here's the logistic fit. I did this off of the 2023 season. It fit the 2022 season even better. So it's not perfect. Got some issues on the edges, but not bad. And gives me a nice formula I can use on reports to coaches. So here's our hits from one of the games. For the most part, if the catch probability is high, it was caught. In this case, and catch probability low, it's a double. Got one anomaly here. We've got a double with a catch probability of 83%. If you look at the actual data, the ball didn't go very far. Very high spin rate, high angle, low exit velocity. And here's the actual trajectory. It's labeled in yellow, so the coaches can see balls that should have been caught. Nothing here but purple would be balls that were excellent catches. So in this case, it was a little pop-up that the center fielder and the shortstop ended up looking at each other and they let it drop. So should have been caught. And the coaches can use this to go over positioning and getting good jumps on the ball with the different fielders. If I've got catch probability, I can get hit probability. In MLB, they only use exit velo and launch velocity, launch angle to get expected batting average. Obviously, there's better ways to predict whether something's a hit, but presumably these are the two that are most under the control of the batter. So again, I did separate analyses. In this case, I did my models under non-Power 5 data and then tested it on Power 5 data. I didn't really see any difference actually looking around between the two. Here is a histogram of exit velos from a season of non-Power 5 games. It's also actually from Power 5 games. It's an identical histogram. Amazingly, not much difference in any sort of metric I could find. So I bend the exit velos and launch angles into bins where I had at least 100 data points, and this plot just shows the actual sample batting average. So I smooth this a little bit, and that's my hit probability. And I can then give the coaches reports. So here's from the 2023 season for Roanoke. Got number of hits, expected number of hits. Luck is just the difference between the two. So if you look at most of the large numbers are positive. So generally speaking, we got more hits than we were supposed to, which either Roanoke's really lucky, maybe, or probably the Division 3 fielders aren't quite as good as the Division 1 fielders. The one exception to large being positive is my guy, Nate Prince. 22 balls in play, 1 hit, should have had 7. He kept hitting line drives right at fielders. And possibly because of this information, or probably because the coaches just saw it, they kept him in the lineup. They knew he was just hitting in bad luck. Division 3, the number of games is not real large. You can't just say that it's going to even out over the course of the season and use the actual numbers. So here's a graph that's being used by a student right now. It's about halfway towards the Eagle model that we saw from Josh Mold in the first of the talks. So in the middle, it's hard to see the numbers, but middle of the strike zones from the pitcher's perspective, obviously, giving up over 800 in terms of slugging percentage. Around the edges, it's dropped to 300, and outside more 100 or 200. So give pitchers feedback on where they need to avoid. Barrels is something that gets talked about a lot. So Major League Baseball uses exit velo and launch angle only. That yields, we want the values that yield a 500 batting average and 1500 slugging average. In MLB, that means exit velo of at least 98 with angles 26 to 30 at 98 miles per hour. Larger range of angles, the larger the miles per hour. More or less, get plus and minus 1 degree for each mile per hour increase. So here's a plot of that. That's in blue. There's the Major League barrel. When I did the exact same thing, going back to the batting average and slugging average definition, here's what I got for Division 1. And it's nearly identical, much more similar than I expected to find. The launch velocity drops down to 96, but that's not much different from 98. Slightly wider range of angles, especially on the upper end for Division 1. So this is something I put into reports to the coaches for a while. So here's the batted balls that you saw earlier. And here's the 5 hard hit balls from Roanoke that game, 5 times exit velocity of 95 or greater. None of them classified as barrels, including the home run. So this guy, not a barrel. It turns out that launch angle is just a little bit too low for the definition. And in general, Roanoke College launch angles are much smaller than what Division I or major leagues call for. And I don't know if that holds for all of Division III, but it might. So actually, barrel's not a statistic I use anymore. Major league average, about 8% of batted balls are barrels. Division I, it drops to a little under 7%. For Roanoke College games, 5 barrels out of 19. That's not balls in play. That's 19 games. So less than 2% of the balls. So that's just one that we've dropped, or we need a new definition of barrel for Division III. Pitch types we look at. TrackMan gives you 2 columns. One's a tagged pitch, manually done by the operator. Auto pitch done by the software. This is a Roanoke College game. Our guy was bringing it at 84, 83 miles an hour on his fastball, 80 or so on his changeup. The software looked at that 83, 84 miles an hour and said, yeah, that's a changeup. So it's just not ever going to give this guy credit for a fastball. So we use the tag pitch. That does mean that inconsistencies in operators can enter into the data quite a bit. Did the same for Division One. So here's reports that I give. So both for the batters and the pitchers, number of swings, foul balls, balls in play, off of fastballs, breaking balls, changeups, whether the ball's in the zone, on the edge, or out of the zone. So obviously you want to break it down into, you really need to swing at that one, good eye, bad eye there, and really don't swing at that one. So what does on the edge mean? That's something that in Division III can be pretty dicey. Here's one of our games. This is from the report I sent to the commissioner of umpires for our league. This was something we did on a regular basis. They wanted it and the umpires wanted it. This guy had a problem. First pitch to left-handed batters. So the batter's standing over here. This is outside, and everything at a certain height was called a strike. Called strikes are in red, called balls are in blue. So this guy had an issue with not being able to see the outside of the plate. So you've got some issues there with Division III, maybe not Division I. Let's check it out. So this is divided up over a full season of Division I. Inside here, a ball is called a strike at least 75% of the time. Outside, less than 25%. Here's the edge, sometimes called strike, sometimes not. Definitely shaded towards the outside. You're not really getting the full inside part of the plate. You're not getting all of the bottom part of the strike zone. And assuming that the batters are about the right size, you're not getting the top of the strike zone either. So that vertical part's based on the height of the batter, so maybe that should be taken with a grain of salt. But the umpires are not perfect. So we use that for the on the edge part of our statistic. So nothing real sophisticated here, but this is great for student projects. And I have 3 students who've been working with me. They've been doing great work. And that's all I've got for you. I hope there are some questions. Thank you.